Is eating before bed always bad for your bones? It's something many folks over 60 worry about, especially if they've been told to avoid late-night snacks for the sake of weight or digestion. But here's something worth thinking about. What if certain snacks at night could actually help your bones get stronger while you sleep? Most people think of bone health as something you support during the day. Calcium at breakfast, walks in the sunshine, maybe a supplement or two. But few realize just how much your bones rely on what happens at night. In fact, the hours after dinner, especially right before bed, play a surprisingly important role in your body's ability to absorb and use minerals like calcium and magnesium. That's especially true for those of us over 60, when our bones are more prone to thinning and our metabolism changes. And yet, a lot of the advice out there treats all night eating the same. Something to avoid. But is that really the case when it comes to joints, your spine, and keeping bones from weakening as we age? Is the fear of nighttime snacking based more on old diet rules than real science? If you're someone who's been told to stop eating after 7 p.m., or if you're up in the middle of the night with stiff knees or aching hips, this might surprise you. Now, if you're curious about small, practical ways to support your bones and joints naturally, especially through things like smart food choices and simple habits, I'd love for you to follow this channel. Every week, we share tips that can actually make a difference, especially if you're caring for aging parents or just want to stay mobile and strong without depending on pills. So go ahead and tap that follow or subscribe button, and let's stay connected. You know, when my Uncle Ray turned 65, he started having this habit of pacing around the kitchen at night, not because he couldn't sleep, but because of that deep, dull ache in his lower back. He used to joke that his spine was reminding him of every single year he'd spent working construction in his 30s. I remember sitting with him one night and asking, "What do you usually eat before bed?" And he just laughed, saying, "Nothing. Aren't you supposed to stop eating after 6 or 7? I'm not trying to gain more weight." That's the belief a lot of us grew up with, that eating anything at night would mess with our digestion, cause weight gain, or even hurt our sleep. And while that might be true for heavy, greasy meals or sugar-packed desserts, it's definitely not true across the board. In fact, the right kind of small, nourishing snack at night can be one of the best things you do for your bones, especially after age 60, when your body isn't absorbing nutrients quite as efficiently as it used to. Here's something most people don't realize. Your bones aren't just hard structures sitting in your body. They're alive, constantly breaking down and rebuilding. And this remodeling process doesn't stop when you sleep. In fact, nighttime is when a lot of the behind-the-scenes repair work happens. That means your body needs steady access to minerals like calcium and magnesium, not just during the day, but throughout the night. If your blood calcium levels drop too low while you're sleeping, your body has to pull calcium from your bones to make up the difference. Over time, that can quietly lead to thinning bones, the kind that don't show up until a wrist fractures after a small fall or a vertebra starts to compress with age. And here's where it gets interesting. After about age 60, we also start to produce less stomach acid, which is needed to help absorb calcium, especially from supplements or hard-to-digest foods. Add to that the fact that many older adults take medications that interfere with calcium absorption, like proton pump inhibitors or certain blood pressure meds, and suddenly even the best calcium-rich diet might not be enough. That's why timing and food combination matter so much more than we used to think. Now, let's talk about a little-known piece of the puzzle: calcium absorption at night. According to research from the National Institutes of Health and other respected sources, calcium is absorbed best when taken in smaller, divided doses, ideally with food. A heavy supplement taken once a day, not ideal, but a small, natural food source of calcium, paired with other nutrients that help carry it into the bones. That's where the magic happens. So when I sat down with Uncle Ray, we talked about what his body might actually be missing at night, not just in terms of food, but in terms of support. His dinner was usually around 6:30, and it was solid. Some chicken, brown rice, maybe steamed broccoli. But after that, nothing. By 10 p.m., his body was in the early stages of fasting. And while fasting has its benefits in some contexts, for a man in his mid-60s with a history of joint pain and spinal stiffness, it wasn't doing his bones any favors. That's when we started experimenting, not with pills, but with real food. The goal was to find a snack that wouldn't spike his blood sugar, wouldn't mess with sleep, but would gently support bone health through the night. Now, this is where things can get confusing, because if you Google foods high in calcium, you'll see the usual suspects: milk, cheese, and yogurt. But what if you're trying to avoid dairy because of lactose intolerance or inflammation? What if you're looking for something gentler, lighter, or more natural? That's where a few unsung heroes come in. One of the most overlooked calcium-rich foods in the U.S. is white sesame seeds. Just 1 tablespoon of these tiny seeds holds nearly 90 milligrams of natural calcium. Toasted slightly and stirred into a small spoonful of honey or almond butter. That's a quiet powerhouse. No upset stomach, no dairy, no pills. But the real gem, the snack that worked wonders for Uncle Ray and that I now recommend to just about everyone in our age group, is a small bowl of warm chia pudding made with unsweetened almond milk, chia seeds, and a touch of cinnamon. It's simple, it's gentle on the stomach, and it delivers a slow, sustained release of nutrients while you sleep. Let me break that down in plain language. Chia seeds are incredibly rich in plant-based calcium, about 180 milligrams in just 2 tablespoons. But they're also packed with magnesium, phosphorus, and even a little omega-3, all nutrients that support bone density and reduce inflammation in the joints. When you soak chia seeds in almond milk, which is often fortified with calcium, you get a creamy, satisfying texture that feels like dessert, but doesn't weigh you down. The natural fats help keep your blood sugar stable, while the fiber slows digestion in a good way, keeping you full just enough to avoid those late-night wake-ups from hunger or discomfort. And cinnamon? Well, besides accompanying smell, it's been shown in some studies to support better blood sugar balance, which indirectly helps with inflammation and metabolic health. That's important because high blood sugar, especially over time, can be a hidden enemy of bone health. It messes with the delicate dance of hormones like insulin and cortisol, which in turn can affect how your body stores and uses calcium. Now, I want to pause here for a second because I can almost hear someone saying, chia pudding at night? That sounds strange. But think of it this way. Back in the day, our grandparents often ended the evening with something small: a bit of stewed fruit, a spoon of warm porridge, or a gentle herbal tea with honey. They weren't trying to snack. They were intuitively calming the nervous system and giving the body something warm and mineral-rich before bed. This chia pudding is the modern version of that. It's not a fad. It's a function. And the best part? Uncle Ray stopped waking up with that same lower backache. Within a few weeks of making it part of his nightly wind-down routine, just a half cup an hour before bed, he started feeling looser in the mornings, less stiffness, more energy. That alone was worth more than any supplement we'd tried before. Of course, it's not just about one snack. Bone strength after 60 is like a stool with 3 legs: what you eat, how you move, and how well you rest. But when you start stacking up small wins, a better snack here, a 5-minute stretch there, a few minutes in the sun, you start to feel it. Not all at once, but over time, like noticing your knees don't creak quite as much when you climb stairs, or realizing your balance is a little better when you reach for something on the top shelf. There's also something deeply comforting about having a small ritual before bed. For Uncle Ray, that chia bowl became part of a bigger routine. Brush teeth, make the pudding, turn off the TV, and sit for a few minutes in the quiet. No screens, no news, just a little nourishment and stillness before sleep. And honestly, that routine might have helped as much as the calcium. I always say, bones may be silent, but they're paying attention. Every decision we make, whether we're lifting a box, skipping lunch, or choosing what we eat before bed, whispers something to our skeleton. And after 60, those whispers turn into signals. It's not about being perfect. It's about being thoughtful. You know, sometimes it's the smallest changes that stick with us the most. A little bowl of something warm before bed. A few seeds soaked in almond milk. Just 10 minutes of quiet in the evening. These things don't seem like much on their own, but they send a powerful message to the body. I'm still taking care of you. We spend so many years pushing through, working, helping others, ignoring those little aches until they become big ones. But after 60, our bones are asking for something different. Not more effort, not more pills. Just more care, more steadiness, more patience. That's what I saw with Uncle Ray. And that's what I've seen in so many others. Once they stopped fighting their bodies and started feeding them gently and consistently, things began to change. You don't need to overhaul your whole diet or do something dramatic. Just start small. Try that simple chia pudding one night this week. Notice how it feels. Not just in your joints or your back, but in your routine. Maybe it helps you sleep a little deeper. Maybe your hands feel less stiff in the morning. Or maybe it just gives you a moment of peace at the end of a long day. That matters, too. And if this little tip, this quiet bedtime snack, helps you even just a little, please consider sharing it with someone you care about. A parent, a neighbor, a friend who's always talking about their knees or their hips. These are the kinds of things we don't hear from doctors. Not because they don't work, but because they're too simple to fit into a prescription pad. So thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to care for your bones, your body, and your future. And if you haven't already, feel free to follow or subscribe. We got plenty more stories, tips, and gentle ideas like this, because staying strong doesn't have to be hard. It just has to be honest. Take care tonight. Your bones are listening.